everyone, this is Don Hussain. Welcome to our weekly show, The Subcontinent. We are here to bring light to some of the most important issues affecting the region. Along with an in-depth analysis of the topics and perspectives from regional and international experts, we shall review what key players think and what common people have to say regarding these issues. In this edition, an uneasy calm prevails in the Indian-controlled Kashmir, as the disputed Himalayan region remains partially locked down following New Delhi's decision to abrogate its constitutional autonomous status, and a rare instance of cooperation between India and Pakistan as the two nuclear-armed rivals inaugurated a border crossing point to facilitate the Sikh pilgrimage. Anger and chaos prevails in the Indian-controlled Kashmir since the government revoked Articles 370 and 35A of the Indian Constitution, effectively removing the special autonomous status given to the Kashmiris. The region has since been under an unprecedented military clampdown. To suppress any unrest, authorities cut all communications, imposed a curfew, and deployed thousands of additional troops to a region already known as the world's most militarized zone. This disputed territory between India and Pakistan has remained at the heart of tension between both the countries since they gained independence from Britain. The tension has exponentially increased and relations with Pakistan have hit rock bottom, with both sides resorting to rhetoric and exchanging fire along the line of control.
Indian-controlled Kashmir remains on a partial lockdown amid people's anger over a host of issues affecting the lives in the disputed Himalayan region, the most recently, the scrapping of its special constitutional status by New Delhi. Shutters continue to stay down, public transportation off, roads and the educational institutions wear a deserted look despite India's claim that things in Kashmir are returning to normal. Tensions spiraled out of control in early August after the Indian government withdrew Article 370 of India's constitution, ending about a 7-decade-long autonomy of the Muslim-majority Kashmir. Amid fears of unrest, authorities then imposed a telecoms and media blackout along with a stringent curfew. Thousands more troops were also deployed to the already heavily militarized region. Kashmir remains at the heart of tensions since the end of British rule on the subcontinent in 1947 and the subsequent creation of Pakistan as the Muslim counterpart to Hindu-majority India. Kashmir was split too, not with the will of its citizens, but following a brief war that left 2/3 in the hands of India and a third going to Pakistan. It wasn't settled until a 1949 ceasefire brokered by the United Nations and a resolution calling for a referendum, allowing Kashmiris to decide their future for themselves that never materialized though. Tensions over Kashmir rose dangerously after the rise of India's Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party to power. The party had made it clear in all its election manifestos that it will revoke Article 370.
Critics question whether the crackdown and the denial of human rights to the 8 million residents of the Muslim-majority region are due to a Hindu nationalist ideology steered by the governing Bharatiya Janata Party of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The voiceless, oppressed people of Kashmir remain desperate for help under the shadows of a blackout.
Despite the known fact that people of Kashmir are against India's move, New Delhi is adamant to impose its direct control over the disputed region. While Pakistan has failed to convince the international community over Kashmir problem, India has maintained to make Kashmir's issue an internal matter. Who's suffering? Of course, the people of Kashmir, who are caught between two nuclear-armed rivals and unable to make a decision for the future. Kashmir has witnessed a spike in violent protests, with Indian security forces often using excessive force to respond to protests. Rights groups have long highlighted heavy-handedness in the Indian-controlled Kashmir region, accounting abuses range from mass killings, enforced disappearances, torture, rape and sexual abuse to political repression and suppression of freedom of speech. Ironically, Indian troops have seldom been held accountable despite serious allegations of human rights violations. Kashmir cannot be seen in isolation of decades of thorny relations between India and Pakistan. Relations worsened earlier this year after a deadly attack on an Indian army camp in Kashmir, which New Delhi blamed on Islamabad. Pakistan dismissed its involvement and accused New Delhi of diverting the international attention from the ongoing deadly crackdown on pro-independence rallies in Kashmir. However, India retaliated soon, with a cross-border airstrike leading to the downing of one of its jets and capturing of its pilot, who was later released. Islamabad supports, though not formally, the Kashmiri people's struggle for independence. However, common people across the borders often pay the price for the decisions made by the ruling elite in New Delhi and Islamabad.
India's hardline ruling party has already been denounced at home and abroad for unilaterally wiping out the autonomy of Kashmir. Let's see how people around the world are trending online to this issue. We are now joined by our guest, Mr. Mohammad Jibran Nasir, who is a lawyer, a civil rights activist, and an independent politician, for his take on this issue. Mr. Jibran, amid international silence, do you think that the suffering of the Kashmiris will end anytime soon?
Unfortunately, I do not see any quick and amicable solution to the Kashmiri problem, which of course entails continuation and intensifying of their miseries and the problems they're facing right now, which not only has to do with the international silence on the Kashmir issue, but also with the diplomatic and other failures of countries like Pakistan, who have long claimed to be standing on the Kashmir issue. And of course, the main culprit, which is the Indian government, the Indian state, and the apathy shown by the Indian masses at large on the Kashmir issue. Today we are seeing riots and protests in every city in India against the Citizenship Act, the new one which has been proposed by the BJP government, because I believe that affects mainland India. However, these same Bollywood celebrities, these same students, these same political groups at large and opposition parties were nowhere to be seen, with the exception of a few who also only spoke for Kashmir in the initial days, whereas business has been continuing as normal for the past 120 odd days.
Okay, that's fair. But how much do you think that the United Nations Security Council is responsible for not making its Resolution 47, which, by the way, calls on India and Pakistan to maintain peace and hold a plebiscite in Kashmir, binding?
Well, see, India and Pakistan are not like any African country which is going through severe civil war, when things have been reduced to banana republic and militias are declaring independence or declaring to be sovereign in the country. Both are sovereign nations. Both are considered to be key and prominent members, especially in the South Asia region. And both are supposed to be having the decency and the sincerity that once they did approach the UN for a solution of the problem, then to stand by that agreement, because that resolution provides obligations for both the Indian and the Pakistani sides. It demands complete evacuation of Pakistani military forces from the area which is called as Jammu and Kashmir. and it asks for India to bring its forces to a minimum in the area which we know as Indian occupied Kashmir.
Now, the human rights violations in the Indian-controlled Kashmir go unchecked, with Delhi failing to bring any culprit into the book. Why do you think this is the case?
Well, whatever human rights violations happen in Kashmir primarily are by the CRPF or other functions of the Indian forces. And whatever authority they have has been given to them by the Indian government, including the laws which provide them immunity from any kind of prosecution or criminal trial. And in that garb, they are allowed to use whatever measure they deem necessary to bring things in order, whether it's murdering someone, abducting someone, or even rape. There are more than 5,200 reported rape victims in Kashmir. And how many prosecutions we have to show that some sense of justice is there? Zero. More than 8,000 people have been abducted. How many have returned and how many did not? There are thousands of mass graves found in Kashmir, unmarked people found dead. Kids as young as 9 have been picked up and tortured and detained. Young men have been sodomized by soldiers. Military has raided wedding parties and raped the bride and bridesmaid. And these are all reported incidents during the past 3 decades by international media, not just by some independent blog or news website.
Kashmir has been a topic of academic and political debates on mainstream media in the subcontinent and beyond. Let's watch how the recent developments hit the headlines.
Kashmir parents keep children out of school as tensions remain high. Kashmir internet shutdown takes toll on economy. Shelling spreads misery in Kashmir, caught between 2 nuclear rivals. Long before revoking Kashmir's autonomy, India had already planned to quell protests. India former minister cancels US meeting over Kashmir criticism. Report.
Now, in Pakistan, Prime Minister Imran Khan, in a goodwill gesture, opened a corridor for the Sikh shrine called the Kartarpur Corridor. The historic cross-border road opening marked a rare moment of cooperation in the hostile relationship between the 2 nuclear-armed rivals who nearly went to war again.
Kartarpur, a town located in Pakistan's Punjab province, is no less than a mecca for the Sikh community in the subcontinent or elsewhere in the world. The town is considered to be the second holiest site for the Sikhism, a religion founded by the 16th century Saint Nanak, also referred to as Baba Nanak. November 9th was a historic moment for the people in the subcontinent as Pakistan and India, amid diplomatic tensions, opened the first ever visa-free corridor between the 2 countries to facilitate the pilgrimage of Sikhs. The Kartarpur Corridor, a 4.7-kilometer long passage, now connects the Sikh temples of Indian side to those in Pakistan. The agreement is the first of its kind since the partition of British India in 1947, and for the first time, Indian and Pakistani prime ministers were found seeing off and receiving pilgrims from across the border. The move came just days ahead of Nanak's 550th birthday on November 12th. Pilgrims came from within Pakistan, from the Middle East, Europe, the United States and Canada, but the majority was from India.
Be here at Nankana Sahib on Guru Nanak Dev Ji's 550th Prakash Purab for me is once in a lifetime. To be able to come to Pakistan for the first time is also wonderful.
There are an estimated 20,000 Sikhs left in Pakistan after millions fled to India in 1947. Due to mass migration, some of the most sacred religious sites associated with the Sikhism were abandoned. It was against their backdrop that Pakistan began paying attention to the restoration of historically significant sites. The initiative to open the corridor effectively exalted Prime Minister of Pakistan Imran Khan as the most beloved figure for Sikhs. Even his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi, despite all odds, issued a rare message of gratitude toward him. But will it prove a thaw in the relationship between the two neighbours?
The move was a landmark occasion, especially for the Sikh community living in India and who didn't have the chance to cross over for pilgrimage. Although the path ahead for Islamabad and New Delhi remains thorny, the opening of the corridor has sparked hopes for more overtures between the two countries.
Although Pakistan has made a landmark move despite soaring regional tensions and domestic pressure, and opening of the border corridor can be rightfully considered as the first drop of rain after decades of desiccation. Though it would have earned the country appreciation abroad, a severe backlash from the opposition at home was very much on the cards. India under Modi is undergoing a massive transformation and into the sixth consecutive year of BJP's rule, but the country's fundamental secular outlook remains under threat as the Modi regime has embraced an opposite course. Optimists may argue that when virtually every avenue of people-to-people contact between the two hostile nuclear neighbours has been closed, the opening of the Kartarpur corridor must be seen as the most positive development. But realists would counter this misplaced optimism by arguing that trust between the two key political actors must exist prior to anything. Probably Guru Nanak's teaching itself is the need of the hour to challenge the prevailing circumstances. The saint who began teaching a faith that preached equality had attracted Muslims and Hindus as his followers. His philosophical movement argued for an inclusive religiosity that allowed people from different sects, castes and religions to come together and worship one God.
For decades, the Indo-Pak ties have experienced several lows and highs. It remains to be seen if the corridor of peace, as many call it, could minimize the mistrust between the two neighbors. Let's see how people around the world are trending online on this issue. We are now joined by our guests, Mr. Anil Trigunayat, former Indian senior diplomat, and Mr. Jamil Khan, former Pakistani senior diplomat, to have more on the Kartarpur corridor. Thank you, Mr. Trigunayat and Mr. Jamil Khan, for coming on our show. Mr. Trigunayat, do you think that Pakistan's move to open a visa-free corridor for the Sikhs could prove to be an olive branch?
Well, as you know that this was indeed a good confidence-building measure on the part of both sides. But the issue of Kartarpur Sahib has been broached by India in 1999 by Prime Minister Vajpayee when he went by bus to Pakistan and to try to defuse the situation. And this year, as you know, that the whole world is celebrating the 550th anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who is the prophet and the guru of Sikhs. And Sikhs live both in Punjab and Pakistan and India and elsewhere in the world. So this was really a very welcome move, which was worked together by both sides, and they on a particular date they were able to inaugurate it, and the right kind of noises were made from both sides.
Mr. Jamil Khan, now the Sikhs were excited, and even the Indian Prime Minister greeted the Pakistani Prime Minister, but don't you think that suspicions prevail across the border, particularly among the ruling elites and the right-wing groups?
Oh, there's no doubt in it. As a matter of fact, any even good gestures and good moves from Pakistan is seen with skepticism and suspicion. That's true. And that's basically, as you yourself in your question have mentioned, that's among their right-wing people and elite class. But people at large, by far, they respect this and they appreciate this kind of opening among the two countries. India and Pakistan, we have so many things in common. We agree on so many cultural and the social and other events with India, except for some strategic issues that is Kashmir and our line of control.
Mr. Trigunayat, do you think that the two neighbors will forget their past to make compromise on contesting issues, maybe with the help of international or regional players or otherwise?
You know, this is not the policy of India. India has always believed, and so did eventually Pakistan through the Lahore Declaration when we signed that, and it's before the Shimla Accord. It is an established fact that the two countries can discuss all the issues, including Kashmir, bilaterally, and they can resolve these among themselves. The progress goes on. But what has really derailed the progress has been these continued terrorist activities and separatist movements that are fanned from across the border. Now, that is something that is Pakistan has to address first, and that is extremely important. If you remember that the Indian side tried several times to start the dialogue, immediately there is some deep state or some kind of people who created attacks on Indian installations. So which is timing the progress, which totally finished.
Now, Mr. Khan, what would be your answer to the same question that I've asked Mr. Trigunayat?
Well, Pakistan has always welcomed any regional or international affairs. If you recall, we have been seeking assistance from the peace-loving international community and particularly the regional neighbors, including Iran and including other Middle Eastern countries, that if they could intervene and be a facilitator in resolving some of the issues between India and Pakistan, it's going to improve the trade, economy, well-being of the people of the region, as well as the security of the region. So yes, Pakistan has been doing it, but India is contesting that point under the under the document which is known as Shimla Conference, Shimla Agreement. And Shimla Agreement, India always feels that that is one document under which the international community should not really comment, or the regional players should not comment. It's only between India and Pakistan.
Emotional moment, historic goodwill gesture and peace overture were the dictums used for the opening of Kartarpur corridor between India and Pakistan. Let's take a watch on how regional and international media reacted to the development.
The Kartarpur corridor and its impact on Indo-Pak relations. India-Pakistan Peace Corridor opens Sikh temple to tourists. Kartarpur corridor, a message of peace and prosperity. In Kartarpur, a reminder that common Indians and Pakistanis want peace. Indo-Pak ties in 2019, from brink of war to corridor of peace. Can Kartarpur corridor ease tensions between India and Pakistan?
With this, we sign off our program. You can follow us on our social media platforms. See you same day, same time next week. Thanks for watching.